Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy beans and Merry Christmas. Welcome back to the Nerdstalgic podcast. I'm your host, Luke, the Jolly Ginger One. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're all good. I hope that Santa spoiled you all absolutely rotten and that you got everything that you wanted for Christmas and no coal at all. Today we're going to be looking at Joy to the World, the Doctor Who Christmas special for 2024, featuring Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor. But before we get into all that and a few extra things that I want to talk about, got to do with housekeeping, because I like to keep my house nice and clean for the Christmas season. So, first things first, if you can follow me on Twitter, or now known as X, at Nerdstalgic_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And finally, if you listen to this on Spotify, on your mobile phone, don't forget to follow the podcast, but also leave a 5-star rating. But also, I've got two extra bit of goodies, because I tend to record a lot of my, pre-record a lot of my episodes so that I can have time off to plan and research for future episodes and just to take a bit of a break, because I love podcasting, but it does take a lot out of me. That I haven't been able to, a lot of the episodes that came before during December, to actually announce any big new announcements. So this is my chance. So, two big announcements. First off, finally, I bit the bullet, and you can now find the Nerdstalgic podcast on Apple Podcasts. So if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, or you're listening on Spotify or YouTube, and you have Apple and you want to follow me there, you can. Also, I am now on Good Pods. So if you're on the Good Pods app, you can find me on there. So two extra places you can find me now. Not just YouTube and Spotify and other podcasting platforms, but you can also find me on Apple and Good Pods. So I'm basically everywhere now. You can get the Nerdstalgic podcast basically everywhere. So you've got no excuse not to listen to me ramble for 30 minutes to an hour about a topic that I love and enjoy. And today is no different. As I said, we're going to be looking at Joy to the World, the Christmas special. Last year I looked at is it Curse on Ruby Road? I feel really bad for not remembering that. Sorry, I've just Googled it. It's Church on Ruby Road. Anyway, I covered that last year and I had a lot of fun. I'll be honest, I really enjoyed that Christmas special. As for sort of my feelings on Series 1 with Ncuti as the Doctor, I want to do a brief sort of feelings on it, because I didn't cover it this year. For a couple of reasons. One, I was really busy. Two, I was already looking at Series 2 with David Tennant and Billy Piper, so that was taking a lot of my time. Again, I was reading the books with that as well. So there was a lot of Doctor Who going on and other things. I was looking at other topics, so I never got the chance to. So I wanted to have a brief moment here just to talk about my thoughts on Ncuti as the Doctor and Series 1 overall. First things first, I do enjoy Ncuti as the Doctor. I think he is doing a fantastic job as the Doctor. I think the only thing that's really letting him down is the writing. And I know people disagree with me, and that's fine. Like, we can have disagreements. I really like Jodie Whittaker's Doctor. I feel like her Doctor was very fun, very sort of whimsical, but she had moments and an opportunity, but she didn't get a lot of opportunity, but she had the opportunity in the character to go quite dark and to go quite sort of full on sort of Time Lord Victorious sort of Doctor. She never got the opportunity to do that, but she was capable of it. And that's down to writing. I feel like what failed Jodie was the writing. And I feel like that could potentially be a downfall for Ncuti, because he's got the talent and he can do the role really, really well. The problem is, and I hate to say it, but I was saying it all through as I was watching the series, is that even though I love Russell T Davies, I feel as if he has got his finger too far into the pie, meaning the fact of he's basically writing majority of the episodes of this series. And he's a fantastic writer, he really is. But one thing that I loved about, like, you know, the Revival series and watching Doctor growing up is that majority of the writers, you'd have sort of the main staple of the writers, but then you'd get guest writers in. And a lot of the time, a lot of those guest episodes are pretty good. And I feel like that is what is needed. I feel like Russell needs to stand back a little bit maybe write a few of the episodes, yeah, and have cancellation on all the episodes, but bring other writers in. Bring Jacqueline Rayner, for example, one of my favourite authors for Doctor Who novels. Bring her in, and bring other sort of a lot of the other book writers in. And other people who've done big finishes, like bringing guest writers to do an episode or two, and to really mix it up, so it doesn't feel so stagnated. It doesn't feel so samey. It just feels like, okay, it's different. It's got a different feeling. It's got a different vibe because it's by a different writer. And that's kind of my thing that I found with series one, is the fact of there were episodes that I really loved and enjoyed, and there are episodes where I was like, "Oh, what is this?" And there were episodes that got me excited and got me annoyed. The whole idea of the end, again, spoilers, sorry, but like the final episode where Ruby was named because her mother was pointing at a street sign. Like, why would she be pointing at the street sign when there was nobody around? Who's she pointing at? And there's no way that she knew about the Doctor or knew about what a unit had this special sort of time machine device. Well, she didn't know that. So who's she pointing at? Why is she pointing at it? And that's just one of a few things, probably many, depends on what kind of person you are. I know there were many people who had loads of problems. I only had a few here and there, and I'm not here to speak negative because, again, I'm not a negative person. But there was a few things here and there that I liked, and there was a few things that I didn't like. And sort of the overall conclusion I've come to with this series of Doctor Who is that I'm going to keep watching because I love Doctor Who. I love all things Doctor Who. And again, with Jodie Whittaker, even when there were things that I didn't like, I still kept watching because I still want Doctor Who. I still love Doctor Who. But I've reached a conclusion. And I was talking to this with Sean from Review It Yourself, with Chat Tsunami, Marie from Two Girls, One Reusable Cup, and a lot of other sort of Doctor Who pages, podcasts, things like that. I've come to the conclusion that Doctor Who is no longer doing for me what it was with the revival. When I watched the revival, it was everything that I wanted and more. But as I've gotten older, I've realised that Doctor Who stopped being for me up until Peter Capaldi. And then they went on to a new generation, which is fine. Because at the end of the day, it's a show that's been going since the 60s. It needs to change. It needs to evolve. And not to say, if you do your research and you look into the revival series, when I started watching Doctor Who in 2005, I was really young and small, and I was the target audience for Doctor Who at the time. But if you look at a lot of the old fans that watched the revival, they said it was trash, it was terrible. Very much the same rhetoric as what's being thrown about today with the current run of Doctor Who. And that's just the old guard being like, don't change the thing that I love, and which is fine. But I basically realised that I grew up with the revival. I loved it, watched it, got to Peter Capaldi, top notch, peak, incredible. And then it got changed, and it was changed, and it was for a new generation. And at the time, I didn't realise it. But what I've realised with Ncuti Gatwa is the fact of, even though I love his Doctor, and I do love Russell T Davies, and I'm still going to watch the show, I've realised that, well, I don't need to watch the show to be a fan. The books that I'm reading, if you're following any of the Doctor Who book reviews that I'm doing, you can see how much a fantastic time I'm having with them. Because I'm having such a fantastic time with the books and Big Finish, I'm really getting into Big Finish in the past 2-3 years. I've really got back into sort of Big Finish, and it's been an absolute joy. And one day I will do some Big Finish reviews because some of the stories on there are biblical. They're absolutely astounding. But because I have the books and because I have Big Finish, that is enough for me as a fan to get my hit, to get my sort of Doctor Who sort of craving, to quench that thirst, shall we say. That's enough for me. That's all I need. Like, I realise that Doctor Who's not for me no more, but that's fine. That's okay. I'm happy with that because I have the books. I've got so much backlog of Big Finish. I've got so much books, like the Virgin media, the Virgin ones that I've got to go read. The Target books, novelizations of episodes, of some of the episodes that I lost the time. And also, I'll be honest with you, a lot of the classic Doctor Who, I haven't seen it. I've only seen bits of Tom Baker. So there's so many episodes that I want to go back and watch. And I want to go back and not just watch, but review the first Doctor, second, third, fourth, fifth. I want to watch. So there is so much Doctor Who content out there for me that even if the current Doctor isn't for me and it's not being written for me, I can still enjoy that, and I can enjoy the external media as well. And again, like, you've got graphic novels and other things. So that's where I've come to with the fact of I enjoyed in parts this first series of Ncuti Gatwa. I really like Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor, and I look forward to seeing where his Doctor goes, and I'm going to continue watching it. But if there's ever a bad episode or a bad season, then okay, because I've got the books, I've got Big Finish, I can escape that way, So yeah, that's sort of my brief sort of thoughts on sort of the first series of Ncuti Gatwa. Like I said, I'm really excited to see where he goes, and that's why I'm covering the special today, is because going into sort of my next point, my hopes for this special is that we just get to see more of Ncuti sparkle and shine, because that's what he's good at. He's good at being sort of the joyous, sort of bombastic, proud sort of, Doctor. He can do the dark as well. We're seeing it bits here and there, but just to get the fun Doctor, have that. So I'm excited for that, and I love a Christmas special. He did a really good job on the Church of Ruby Road. And obviously this one is written by Stephen Moffat. I will admit I wasn't a big fan of Boom. Again, I'm not going to go into it. It was funny. Me, Sean, and Chatsu, we were talking about when it came out. Every time a new episode came out, we would basically review it amongst ourselves, just us like having a chat. And I ended up rewriting it, well, not physically rewriting it, but I ended up rewriting certain scenes of like, this is how I would do it. And Sean was like, okay, we'll add this in, and sort of thing. So we actually had a moment where we was like, okay, I'll rewrite this. And so instead of having this, I'll have that, and having this character here instead. And maybe one day I'll share my version of it. If I ever get round to reviewing Ncuti Gatwa, and more fairness, it will be years down the line, because I ain't even finished David Tennant's run, and I've got to go back and finish off the books for the Ninth Doctor. So, it's going to be a while before I get there. But if I ever do get to Ncuti Gatwa and his series, and I ever do review it, and I do remember my version of that story in my head, one day I'll share it. But despite that, Stephen Moffat is writing this episode, so I'm excited. I watched Children in Need probably a week or two now as we're recording this. And one thing that they showed a clip. And again, I won't spoil it in case no one. Well, then again, what's the point spoiling it? By the time this episode comes out, the episode's already out. Because I'm pre-recording this. It's currently the 26th of November. Like, I haven't watched it yet as doing the introduction, but by the time this episode goes out, I would have watched it, if that makes sense. Anyway, it's all wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey stuff. Anyway, in the short clip they showed the Doctor and sort of the companion. They're in sort of a jungle area in a hotel, and all of a sudden they get attacked by a dinosaur. But just before then, they mentioned the Valley Guard, and I feel like I'm pronouncing that right. And basically, they are a villain. So in a lot of Stephen Moffat stories, they pop up, and they are basically a giant corporate war machine. That when you first, I think it first gets mentioned with Christopher Eccleston, when he basically I think it's in. Oh, Are You My Mummy? I think it's that episode. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. But basically, he goes, oh, yeah, this company, the Valley Guard, I basically blew up their munitions factory, and that there's a nice grove of banana trees. I like bananas. That's what was first mentioned, and it's died here and there. In a lot of these episodes that he's written, it gets mentioned, or it's mentioned in the background sort of thing. So it's interesting to see. Now, I have a theory, right, going into this. Well, more of a hypothesis. Now, if you go off from what the Ninth Doctor said, where he blew up their munitions factory, and I can't think of other examples, but I'm sure they came up with other examples with other Doctors as well. And then you get Boom, most recently with Ncuti Gatwa and what happened there. I have a feeling that the boss, so when you've got the Star Beast, right, you've got Beat the Meep. Well, at the end of that, Beep goes, wait until the boss hears about this. And a lot of people thought that was Maestro, or it was what we readily find out would be Sutek and things like that. But I have a theory now from watching this small clip that I've seen, that the boss is the boss, or bosses, of the Valley Guard. That they are getting revenge for the Doctor are basically ruining all their war operations, blowing up their factories, stopping them from having battles and these endless wars and all these trillions and billions and quadruple mega buck space money of transactions. And they're the boss or whoever runs that company is coming to get the Doctor, and that's my theory anyway. I might be right, might be wrong, but I feel like we're going to learn a lot more about the Valley Guard in this episode, because it seems that they intertwine. So that's my hopes of it. We're going to find out more about them and hopefully find out who the boss is, and then maybe like it'd be sprinkles here and there that we might in series 2 we might learn a bit more about them. We might see Beep the Meep again. I don't know. I hope we do, because I love Beep. He's one of my favorite Big Finish characters, and especially I've got the graphic novel as well with the Fourth Doctor and when they first meet each other. So I'd love to see Beep come back, and just wonderful. So yeah, I've got hopes. I've got my fingers crossed. But again, it's a Christmas special. It's going to be full of whimsy and wonder and timey-wimey stuff, and it's the Doctor, and it's weird. Doctor Who works so well at Christmas, and I can't explain why. But if you've seen any of the Doctor Who Christmas specials, they just work. All of them just are good. They're just great. You know what I mean? So I'm really excited. And one year I will get round to doing a whole December month just talking about Doctor Who Christmas specials. It's been requested and it's on the back burner. And one year I will do it. I promise, because I love them. But for now, that's all I've got to say about sort of my impressions and thoughts on Shoot Gatwa and the first series and Joy to the World. It's going to be a while before I watch this episode, but thanks to timey-wimey space stuff, you're going to hear my thoughts in the future of what I thought about this special. So lucky you. And I will see you all in timey-wimey minute. Okay then, so I've watched Joy to the Earth 2 times now. I've also been onto YouTube and I've seen the behind the scenes and how they made it. I've also watched the Unleashed episode, so I would say that I feel like I've watched enough of Joy to the World to give it a fair talk. And I do it with everything. I did it with last year's, and I do it with a lot of, whenever I talk about like series 2 and like the older Doctor Who's. I want to experience everything. I want to ingest everything. I want to read the books. I want to see the series. I want to watch the series at least twice, and I want to look at the Doctor Who Confidential. So I do it with, I'm always really big on wanting to make sure I cover and look into everything before I get to talk about something. And I do it with all my topics. And that's why I'm starting like this, and there's a reason by it, is because my first impressions of Joy to the World is that it was all right. There's nothing much to say than that. It was all right. It was neither brilliant or excellent or blow me away, but also on the flip side, it wasn't bad, it wasn't terrible, it wasn't the worst thing I've ever seen. It was very middle of the road, all right. You know what I mean? And it's a shame, to be honest, because I was excited since the end of the first series with Ncuti. Even though there were a few episodes that I didn't like, and there were some things that I did like and didn't like, I was still hyped and I was still excited to see where this goes. And then we had Stephen Moffat back to write, and all this big hope and all this big sort of build up over this excitement of what Joy to the World's going to be, and how it's going to play out, and what the story is going to be. And then they got one of my favorite actors. I'm a big fan of Derry Girls, and to get Nicola Cullen in, I feel like I'm butchering her last name, I do apologize, but to get her in, I was just so excited. She's going to be playing Joy, and yeah, I was just on tenterhooks. I'm like, Christmas Day can't come any sooner, because it just felt something biblical was going to happen. Because like, I'm not a big Gavin and Stacey fan, but I know there's a lot of people are. And like Christmas Day on the BBC, we had Doctor Who. Then we had brand new Wallace and Gromit. We haven't had a proper full length Wallace and Gromit film since The Curse of the Were Rabbit, and it's been a long time, right? So we had Doctor Who, we had Curse of the Were Rabbit, we have Gavin and Stacey. There was so much that was building up to for the day, Christmas Day, for Doctor Who, that I was just excited. I was like, oh my God, I can't wait. Christmas Day can't come. And it came, and it went, and it was like, wow, that was incredible. And then it was like, okay, so what do you love about Doctor Who? And it was like, it was all right. And that's a bummer, because when I was younger, I remember watching the Christmas specials and just being like, they were the highlight of my year. They were highlight of my Christmas. Of like, I did all these wonderful things. I got all these amazing gifts, but then I got to watch Doctor Who on Christmas Day, and it just felt right. But to Christmas Day 2024, it was all right. And it's a shame, to be honest. And I don't know what it is. I've basically, this year with Doctor Who, I've been questioning myself. I've been questioning. I feel like Cindy Lou Who with in the Grinch, where she's like, what does Christmas mean to me? And I'm sitting there thinking, what does Doctor Who mean to me? And I have come to, and if you've listened to any of my Doctor Who episodes, you might have heard me mention this, but I've come to a conclusion with myself with Doctor Who, is the fact of, I love Doctor Who. I always will. Doctor Who will always have a special place in my heart. But I feel like what I want out of Doctor Who and what I'm looking for Doctor Who, I'm not currently getting it in the show. Not to say I'm not enjoying the show, not to say I'm not enjoying the Doctor or anything like that. Like, I love the Doctor. I think Shooty's incredible. I love the ideas that they're coming up with. And like I said, some of the episodes that I like, some of the episodes I don't like. But since discovering Big Finish a couple of years ago, and then reading the books for the podcast, the Doctor Who novels, I have found that they're doing for me what I want Doctor Who to be. They're pushing the boundaries. They're pushing the characters over. They're doing things that the show either can't do because of time or budget, or just won't do because they can't for TV, which is fine. So for me, I've come to the conclusion that if I'm not enjoying Doctor Who, that's fine. I'll watch it and I'll be a fan and I'll support it to keep it going. But I'm more than happy to take a step back and just to kind of listen to Big Finish, to watch from afar, to read the books, and to enjoy my own little world of Doctor Who, and that's fine with me. But yeah, this going on to sort of Joy to the World, it was all right, and that's the long and short of it. Obviously, I'm going to go into a bit more depth, but that is my first impressions, is that it was all right. And on the second viewing, I actually found that there was one, and I want to talk about when I get into the story, but there was one part that I really enjoyed the most and was the best part of it, and actually should have been the whole special, in my opinion. But again, we'll get there. As for sort of the story, so the story of this is that the Doctor is on his own. He's left Ruby. He's left her with her mum and her stepmom and her family. And obviously, the idea is, she needs a bit of space. She hasn't seen her mum ever, really. So he's gone off and given her some space. But again, the Doctor's on his own, and he decides he's going to go on a break. And he works his way to the Time Hotel. When he gets there, he notices a gentleman with a briefcase. It's chained to his arm. And the Doctor, being inquisitive, can't help not be a bit nosy and just see what's going on and ask questions as to why. And the story goes from there. We also meet Joy as well. It's revealed later on in the story as to why Joy is on her own at Christmas and why she spends Christmas on her home. And I will admit, like, there are parts in this story that are heartwarming, that are beautiful, that are very powerful from both actors, from Nicola and Ncuti. Especially Nicola, she has this one scene where she just full on breaks down, and it's a beautiful scene. And don't get me wrong, like, there are some really good scenes in this, and that was one of them, when she breaks down to the Doctor, because the Doctor's trying to get her angry, and she just breaks down. And it is beautiful. It's really, really well done. And obviously, the idea behind Joy is, again, it's a fantastic quote. It's this idea of, like, you do get a lot of people who are very sad, people that have been through trauma, been through a lot of struggles in life, will smile all the time. The happiest people in the world are usually the saddest people in the world, to quote Robin Williams. And it's true. And I will admit that myself. There are many moments in my life where I've been really sad and depressed and down, and I'll smile through the pain. Like I said, not to make it sort of sad, because obviously this is a sort of happier sort of episode, but when my grandfather passed away, I was still in school, and he passed away on the Friday. So all of Friday, Saturday, Sunday was tears, sadness, and just being utterly distraught. I get up Monday, I walk to school, I'm very sad, I'm very upset. As soon as I get into the school gates and I realise that I'm no longer on my own, I don't know how I did it. I just shut it all off, smiling, happy. I had laughs, I had jokes with friends and family. Well, not friends and family, obviously, but like friends at school. If you didn't know anything had happened, you wouldn't have known. And as soon as I left school and like my friends one by one went their own way as we all walked home together, as soon as I'm on my own again, straight back to how I was. And so it's true. People who deal with a lot of sadness, deal with a lot of struggle, hide it. Some of the happiest people in the world are the saddest people, and that's a true. And there was a beautiful quote in this where I think the doctor, I can't remember the quote, but the doctor basically says, "There's there's something behind the eyes. It's kind of like there's an oven boiling over sort of thing of like you can tell there's emotions welling up, but you're using the smile to keep it in. The smile is the lid, but if you don't smile, you're just going to explode." You know what I mean? And there are moments like this. So there are moments where I could relate, and there's moments that were very wonderful and very sad. But I don't know, just everything else was just a bit meh, you know. And actually, the bit that I loved the most was when the doctor was being mundane. There was a part in the story, and this is a bit that kind of makes me laugh, and I had to giggle when the second time I watched it because I mostly agreed with myself. I realised my thoughts was true. There is a part in the story when, after you've had all the introductions, the doctor basically comes in and Joy has had the case strapped to her, so she's stuck with the case. And the doctor's trying to figure it out. And he's like, I don't know the code to shut it off. And all of a sudden, his future self comes in, tells him the code, and takes Joy away and basically says to sort of the present doctor, basically goes, look, you have to stay here. If you want to figure out the code and you want to break it, you can't break the cycle, you have to stay here. And then sort of leaves the doctor on his own, and then the future self goes off. And then, but the story kind of continues from the perspective of the present doctor. And he basically has to spend a year in this hotel for Christmas next year so that he can go to another door in another hotel to kind of open it and then to get back to his past self so that he can tell his past self the code to lock it. It's the bootstrap paradox, kind of, in a way. The universe is weird, and they do kind of talk about it. But basically, in that moment, so there's this whole scene where I just forget about Joy to the World. I forget about Joy. I forget about the whole plot. And I just get lost in this story where the doctor's being mundane. And now some people might hate me for this, but it's true. Some of the parts that I really enjoyed in this was that mundane bit, was because it reminded me of when Matt Smith did it. During I think a couple of series of when Matt Smith was just being human. He was playing football. He was when I think he also worked in a toy shop and things like that. He had a job. He just lived life with humans. And granted, the doctor says himself, like, I don't work mundane. Mundane doesn't work for me. To be honest, I don't like to stay in one spot. I have to keep moving, really. But I love those moments when Matt Smith just lived a normal, mundane life. And there's a moment where he just spends a year with Anita. Anita is the manager of this hotel. And the doctor becomes the handyman. And it's such a beautiful moment. And I completely forgot about Joy. I completely forgot about the Vale Garden. I forgot about all of this plot and story and all this jazz. I forgot about it. And I was just lost in these two dynamic. And it was heart-wrenching at the end of it when the doctor basically says to Anita, of like, I've got to go. She's like, I always knew you had to go, but I didn't want to believe it. And she's like, she knows he's going to forget about her, because she's always forgotten about, but she's like pleading with him with tears behind her eyes, like, don't forget about me, Anita, please. All lang syne, like, just please don't forget me. And we all know the doctor will, because the doctor does. And the doctor doesn't mean to do it, it's just the way the doctor is. And it's very heartfelt, very sad, and very beautiful. Then all of a sudden, it jumps back into the Joy to the World story. And I'm like, whoa, okay, hold on a second. I've now got to recalibrate to catch up to the Joy to the World story. And it was those parts, it was the Joy to the World parts I didn't enjoy. I didn't enjoy any of that. I enjoyed the side plot. And I've got a whole section about that I'm going to talk about in a minute, but I enjoyed the side plot between Anita and the doctor. That was the best part. And in my opinion, that should have been Joy to the World. But we will get there in a minute. And yeah, so obviously the story goes on and on and on. And it was one of those where I just couldn't get back into the story, even though watching it a second time round, because you've given me such a fantastic character piece between Ncuti and this other actress. The way their dynamic is, the way they are, the way that the doctor learns more about himself, this idea that the doctor screams at himself like, "This is why you're alone, because no one sticks around, because you're such an enigma. You keep so many secrets. This is why nobody sticks around and saves you, and you're so oblivious to it. You don't even have chairs because nobody comes round." And then the doctor realizes, like, "Yeah, I don't have a chair, because the doctor used to have a chair, but he stopped having chairs because people stopped coming around, because he never stuck around long enough for people to sit and stay." You know what I mean? And he realizes, and there's a beautiful moment where him and the doctor and Anita sit there, and he looks at the chair, and Anita's about to leave, and he's like, "Anita, take a chair, sit, talk to me." And they'd make it a regular thing, and it's absolutely beautiful, and I get lost in that. And then all of a sudden, I'm back to Joy to the World, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, so this is what we're doing." But it's hard to forget something so wonderful, and then to go on to something that's not as wonderful. Like I said, there are beautiful moments in the whole Joy to the World part of it, and there are sad moments, and like there's a speech that Joy gives to the doctor as to why she's the way she is and why she spends Christmas on her own, which is very heartfelt and very beautiful, and something that we can all relate to because of like things like COVID and lockdown and stuff like that, and really beautiful and really fantastic. But when you take those moments out, and then you have the whole Anita thing as well, the whole Doctor and Anita, it kind of, for me personally, I just kept getting lost. I get sucked in and I get pulled out. I get sucked in and I get pulled out. And it's like, I just couldn't overly enjoy it, sadly. And then you get the end of the story, and it's meant to be heartfelt, and it's meant to be beautiful. And visually it is, and some of the words and some of the things that are said are quite nice. But the problem is, because that constant being pulled in, pulled back, pulled in, pulled back, and being brought this way with this one story, then that story's ended. Now I've got to now care about the story that we already was on. It's a bit, it was just, I kept just getting lost, to be honest, and I couldn't just sit here and think of Anita. I kept thinking about Anita. I want to see Anita. I want to see more of Anita. I just, yeah. And then at the end of it, there is a moment where Anita, she gets offered a job at the Time Hotel because the doctor has put a word in for her, and because she deserves it. And I'm like, yeah, Anita does deserve it. You know what I mean? And apparently, when I listened to the behind the scenes, that actress who played Anita, that was her first time ever on screen. That's her first time on screen role ever. I wouldn't have believed it. I generally, she was so talented and so great that I really hope this actress does so much more, because she was just great. And again, it's funny because I feel like you saw more of Anita than you said Joy. Joy is meant to be the whole focal piece of this story, but it feels like you actually spend more time with Anita and getting to know Anita than you do with Joy. It almost feels like with Joy is rushed. It feels like Anita, they have a year, but you don't see the whole year, obviously. You just see certain bits throughout the year in parts. But you spend so much more time with Joy, so much more time with Anita, and you learn more about her. And then, because you get pulled out of it, then you get sucked back into that story, that once you have to catch back up with what's going on in that story, then you have oh God, okay, we've got to have the emotional moment with Joy. And then it's revealed of why Joy is the way she is. And then by the time you get that, you don't get to sit with it. You don't get to mellow with it. It's just a fact of, oh, okay, that's happened. Okay, next bit. And then the star seed opens, and then we get the ending, and then that's it. And it was like, oh, okay. And this is my downside, really. The thing that kind of bums me out about it is the fact of, there was so much good protection. There was something great in it, and I feel like this story would have been better if they got rid of the Time Hotel. If they would have saved the Time Hotel for not a Christmas episode, but just a standard episode. And like this section, I'm going to call my version of Joy to the World, and I'm going to call it The Doctor and Anita. Right. So after watching it twice and talking to a few friends of mine, I have basically, what I'm decided I'm going to do for this part of the review is I'm going to basically talk about my version of what I thought Joy to the World should be. And basically it involves Anita and the Doctor. So when you first meet Anita, she is just your standard, like she's a standard background actress. You don't pay much attention to her. She's just there. She's kind of expose. She's like, here you are, here's your room, blah blah blah. She leaves, comes back. She comes back with tells. The Doctor is there with a Silurian and Joy, and she's like, oh, okay, this has got nothing to do with me. Here's your towels. I'm leaving. And again, she's a forgettable character because she's a background character. You're not meant to focus on her. She's just meant to be there for a little bit of info dump and then she leaves, right? But that's her character. That's who Anita always is. And you spend time with Anita, you learn that she's always in the background. No one ever cares about her. No one ever tells her that she's amazing. Nobody notices her. She's just there. And as you spend more time with her and the doctor gets to know her a lot more, you realize there's a lot more to her and that she's a wonderful character. And how I would have done Joy to the World would have been the doctor's on their own for Christmas and basically decides to book themselves into a hotel, right? Now, this idea I've had in my head, again, I've only had 2 days to think it up, so it's not foolproof. It's not going to be perfect. And I'm not sitting here saying that I'm better than Stephen Moffat, because I'm not, because he's a successful writer. He's won awards and he's published things. I haven't. I'm just a freelance writer who writes in their spare time. And again, somebody who watches a lot of Doctor Who. But this is sort of my feeling. So the doctor's on their own at Christmas. The doctor basically decides, I'm not going to be on my own. I'm going to stay in a hotel. He goes into a hotel. He meets Anita and he gets to know her and he spends time with her. And then for some unknown reason, he can't go into the TARDIS for a year. You know, for something like that. Something happens where he can't go in the TARDIS. Maybe it needs an update, or it's locked him out, or whatever. For some reason, he just can't go in the TARDIS for a year. So he decides to stay and become a handyman and live a mundane life. And within doing so with the story, you learn more about Anita. You learn more about her. You learn more about the Doctor. And it'd be a story where you look more into this idea that what the Doctor means to the people, and what the Doctor means to the people, what the Doctor means to me, to you, to all humans, is because, like, I was having this idea. I was talking to Nicole from the Doom Generation, and I sent her a message of what I was thinking, and I've just got to look for it now. So I basically put the whole episode could have been an example of how the Doctor brings joy to people and fans. So it wouldn't just be the fact of he brings joy to me, he brings joy to you being fans, but he also brings joy to the people that are around him. That people, as soon as you're around the Doctor, you instantly just feel better, you feel warm. And it could have been a sort of example of that, but also it'd be what it means to, like, I'm trying to think. So what it means fans, and why the Doctor means so much to us all, as they feel like our friend and that we are the side companion in the story. And that is kind of the whole thing of, like, I would have done the whole story where the Doctor spending time around Anita brings joy to Anita's world. You know, like I said, I've only had 2 days to think of the story. Again, I haven't thought about it beat for beat, but that's how I would have done. I would have structured the whole story just Tarantino style in the hotel, in a few small sort of areas, maybe thrown an alien or two, so it's something that kind of keeps the Doctor there, the reason the Doctor is in the hotel, but keep him there for a year, make him the janitor, make him the odd job man, just doing things and being himself and doing things, but in a Doctor style. You know, like he does. He fixes her microwave. It's bigger on the inside. It shouldn't be, but it's like, well, it is. He fixes the sat nav on a car, but the sat nav only takes her where she needs to go, not where she wants to go. And now her car's blue. Again, i.e. the TARDIS, i.e. the Doctor can't fix the teleportation system on the TARDIS. So the TARDIS just takes you where he needs to be, not where he wants to go. And again, it's things like that. It's silly, it's funny, it's smart, it's clever. And that's what I would have done. I would have just done that for an hour. And at the end of it, then you have that huge payoff when she's like, "Please don't forget me. I knew you wouldn't be here forever, but please don't forget about me." Like, I would have cast the same woman. I wouldn't have had Kylie Minogue or some sort of big celebrity or anything like that, big name actress. I would have had purposely a no name actress that nobody knows. And I would have put her in the role, because then it works so perfectly. This idea of she's a no-name actress. I don't know her. You don't know her. She's never done anything else. It's the first time being on screen. So you don't think of her as special. And then as the episode goes on, you learn more about her and she becomes special to you. She becomes special to you because she's just being herself. She's being Anita. She's no longer being overlooked. She's now being seen and being witnessed by a magical, wonderful person, the Doctor. and by us, the audience, and that you fall in love with her. And then by the end of the episode, she has that speech of like, "Oh, lang syne, please don't forget about me." And then you could have had a lovely sort of moment when the Doctor does something for her. Somebody comes in and she's won a trip of a lifetime, around the world trip, or again something incredible. Like again, you could even the time hotel. Give her a really fantastic job to get her to somewhere that she deserves to be, and that's how I would have done it. To be honest, I would have just focused the story. I would have got rid of the joy to the world. I would have got rid of that story, and I would have just had the Doctor and Anita. And I feel like that in itself would have been a beautiful Christmas story, and end it on Christmas as well. And then that would have set up for the Doctor having a bit of character development, learning more about them, realizing they don't have a chair, spending time with one human for a year, and just living a mundane life and realizing why the Doctor doesn't needs people, why the Doctor shouldn't be on their own, why the Doctor is so important to people, and why the Doctor loves humans and humanity so much because of the joy that humans bring him, as well as the joy that he brings to humans and other species and people that he meets. And again, you could have kept it joy to the world, but then you could have just had like joy to Anita, joy to the audience, joy to the viewer, joy to the fan, joy to the human race. You know what I mean? Just by the Doctor being the Doctor, he brings joy to the world. Perfect, in my opinion. But again, I'm not Stephen Moffat. I'm not a writer for Doctor Who. I'm just me. I'm just a guy with a podcast, really. I'm nothing special. But that's how I would have done it. And I feel like that would have been lovely. And I would have loved that. I think that would have been so different for Doctor Who, so different, nothing big, nothing spectacular, just a simple sort of like Tarantino-esque sort of like only a few scenes in a few areas, maybe even one big area, and just have a human story. Well, an almost human story, because the Doctor's not human, but you know what I'm trying to say. Just have a really organic story, and I think that's what's missing. Really, is just to have character development and just have real sort of powerful emotional moments between two characters would have been wonderful. It's kind of funny. I've never done this ever with any show. I've never sat down and I would do that differently. This is how I'd rewrite it. And even if I didn't like an episode, I'm like, oh, I would have done this or that, but I wouldn't put a lot of thought into it. But it's funny that twice in 1 year, I have had to, not correct, but I've had to rewrite in my head Moffat episodes. I had to do it with Boom. I watched Boom and I thought, I wouldn't have done it like this. I'm not going to talk about my idea of Boom because, again, that's a whole different thing and I don't want this episode to go on for forever. But I would have done Boom completely differently. And one day I will share it. And if people are interested, I will find an episode where it suits it and I will share my thoughts. But it's just interesting that I've never had to do it with any other show. I've never had to do it with Doctor Who. And I've never, ever had to do it for Stephen Moffat. He's always just killed it and smashed it out of the park with every single thing he's ever done. But it's just interesting that twice in 1 year, I've had to sit here and go, I would rewrite that differently and I would do that different. And I just don't know. I don't know why, but it's just twice. I just feel like if I had a nickel for every time it happened, I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's just strange I've had to do it twice. You know what I mean? But yeah, my overall thoughts of Joy to the World is that it's all right. There are some good parts in it, and there's some really things I do enjoy, and there are lovely moments. And like the whole Anita and the Doctor thing for me is the standout and the best part about it. And like I made the joke to Sean from Review It Yourself, and I think I said it to Nicole from Doom Generation. I both said to him like, Big Finish is going to have a field day, because it is. Big Finish will have a field day because that's 1 year. That's 12 months, 365 days. Yeah, thereabouts, unless it's a leap year. 365 days, 12 months of potential of you could do a whole Big Finish series of the Doctor and Anita just living mundane lives or going on adventures. I would love that. Like, the Doctor doesn't have the TARDIS, but that's fine because the third Doctor had these TARDIS but couldn't use it, so he had to do adventures on the planet Earth. I would love that. I would happily listen to a whole Big Finish series of Anita and the Doctor. That I'd be all over that, like a fly on excrement. I'd be all there. They might do it, might not do it, but if anybody would be the person to do it, it'd be Big Finish. But yeah, it was just a bit of a bummer, bit of a disappointment. Wallace and Gromit was fantastic though, so to have a bit of a downer and then to watch Wallace and Gromit and then to be floored and to just love it and then to be like, this makes me so happy and so full of joy to see these characters again and see Feathers McGaw and all that. Like, it was wonderful. There was a downer moment, then there was an upper. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't like to be negative, and I don't want to be, and I try my best to not be negative. But yeah, I just feel like Joy to the World should have been the Doctor and Anita, and the rest of it I wasn't a fan of the rest of it. There were good parts in the rest of it, but not as good as what you had just between the Doctor and Anita. That part was the best part, in my opinion. But that's my thoughts and feelings. This will be the last ever episode of Series 3. This will be the last ever episode of the Nerdstalgic podcast. When I come back next year, I'm not going to be known as the Nerdstalgic podcast. I'm doing a whole rebrand, and I'm going to be known as the Howdy Beans podcast. So I'll have more details about that. If you've got me on X, then you'll find out more about it on X, and I'll share it there. And also, I'm going to be doing an end of year episode at the beginning of January, which kind of is a look back, a reflection of all the stuff I've done over the third year of podcasting, and I will announce it all there and the name change and all that. So if you don't follow me on Twitter or X, then you'll find out there. But yeah, I'm looking to do more Doctor Who things next year. I'm going to start with doing Touchwood. I've never really experienced Touchwood, so Touchwood is where I'm going to begin, and then we'll get into Doctor Who. But I want to look at more books. I want to look at some Big Finish. So the sort of cycle of Doctor Who won't end. It's actually just going to get bigger, and I'm going to look into a lot more things. So if you like this, you want to hear more Doctor Who things from me, then by all means look back at my catalogue. I have done so many Doctor Who stuff in the past. I've looked at Series 1 and Series 2. I've reviewed them. I've looked at the books. I've looked at like Curse of Fatal Death, the Doctor Who special for Red Nose Day from like 1998, 1999, I think it was, with Rowan Atkinson and a bunch of other wonderful characters. I've looked at Doctor Who Shulkra. So there's a lot of Doctor Who content that has been done and it will be done in the future. But to hear all about it, again, follow me on X at nerdstalgic_pod. If you listen to this on YouTube, please leave a like, a comment, and maybe even subscribe if you want to. If you listen to this on Spotify and you haven't done so yet, please leave me a follow so that you can be kept up to date whenever I release a new episode over on Spotify. And that leave a 5-star rating if you liked the episode, because that really helps me get thrown up the Spotify algorithm as well. And yeah, you can find me on Apple. You can find me on all podcasting platforms. And if you're on Good Pods, you can find me on there. So thank you very much for listening to my review of Joy to the World. I will see you all next year. Hope you all had a wonderful Christmas, by the way. Hope you all actually have a wonderful Boxing Day, which is the day I'm recording this, which is the 26th of December here in the UK, if you don't know what Boxing Day is. I hope you all have a fantastic New Year's as well. And I will catch you all in the next one. Bye-bye.